Satire and parody in the way that I implement it is what infuriates America and confuses people in a way that it inspires a lot of conversation and provokes them, because I don't always make it clear what my intentions are, because that takes a lot of the meaning out of art. I make things that challenge the idea that how could putting on something comical like a children's hat like this all of a sudden become something that threatens the integrity of American culture. It's amusing to me, so this record contains a larger spectrum of my personality than I have in the past. And instead of talking about how I feel, I think I just put people inside my head with the way I painted pictures with words on this album. I wanted them to feel like I feel rather than hearing like I feel. So with rhythm and cadence and tone, I, in some ways, created the opposite of a silent film in music. Almost a musical, but not in the traditional sense when someone sits down to write a musical. But I think it takes you on a similar journey. It tells you a tale. Everybody is going to hear a different one because the tale it tells you is usually your own. I want people to see themselves in me. And that's what infuriates people, because they see themselves and sometimes they're ashamed of things. You know, each culture, whether it be the French or the Germans or the Americans, which is strange because Germany and France and America aren't very friendly with one another right now. So it's good for me as an artist to try and reunite the people through something entertaining and pointing out that art and entertainment can exist in the same person if done the way that I'm doing it. But those three mediums and events like the Grotesque Burlesque, I believe that those were some of the best escapes for people. If you can't control the world outside, I can create a world for people in a record or in an event that they can feel free. They can feel truly free and not owned by anybody or not controlled by anything but their own whims and their own... The record begins with me being faced with the idea of everything's been said, so what do I do? And I answer my own question with the song, This Is the New Shit. And it seems very degenerative in its deconstruction of ideas by almost making fun of itself as it goes along. And I end that song with Let Us Entertain You, which is a very American anecdotal phrase. And I end the album in a similar way by saying, I'm not ashamed that I entertained you, but it's more than that. This is my life. Sex plays an important role and contrast in everything that comes across on this record, because I talk about relationships that I've overcome in the past and how they've helped form my personality. And it's by having a relationship now that I feel very inspired by that I can have that distance to look back at things that I've done in the past. I was attracted to her because she has an interest in a lot of the same aesthetics as me, and she also takes her performance and what she does with the same level of dedication and also with the same ability to have a sense of humor about what you do. And you can be completely serious and dedicated to your art without taking everything seriously. So I think maybe her positive influence was making me feel like I should put forth more of my personality. But that doesn't mean stripping away anything. It just means showing people more than I've shown them in the past. It was just a challenge to me to make people feel more than anything that the time they spent at a show or the time they spend listening to a record is more like time they've spent with me alone, getting to know me. I'm not sure what really made the change in my expression other than probably it's a reflection of my personal life. And I've had a lot of difficulty dealing with sexual subjects and sexual situations, you know, all my life through childhood. And I think that continued on and still does continue on. And the best way for me to deal with it is by showing people things, because I'm always showing myself when I do it too. I create things for people, knowing what I think that they need or they want, but I'm not controlled or catering to my audience in any way, because then that changes the purity of what you do. So there's a fine line between giving people what they want and letting them dictate what you create for their demands, and you become much more like a waiter than a chef. It's strangely hard for me to be objective, because I found that when we were making the record, I thought it was very difficult for others to understand it, because we created in a completely different fashion than before. But maybe we've stumbled on the best and strongest form of this band that's ever existed. I would suggest composing a song from an idea that I pulled from my head, not an idea I could show anyone, so I would have to, in the role of producing, and which worked with my collaboration with Tim, that I could say, I want a song that sounds like a burning piano, with the rhythm of a stampeding elephant, with a Busby Berkeley chorus line of girls. Or I want a song that, for another interesting experiment making the record, the song Paranoir, which is a word that I created to describe the fear and paranoia of why people want to use you, or what people want out of a relationship. It's a fear that everyone has. So I gathered together an audition of sorts of different women that I didn't know, and I asked them to say whatever they wanted to. The only prerequisite was that they begin the sentence with, "I fuck you because." And I said, you can imagine it's me, you can imagine it's somebody else in your life. I did not give them any music to listen to. I just asked them to say exactly what they wanted, and I would encourage them to get mad, and some of them recited it in the nude. You know, there was just, every occasion it was an experiment in seeing what people would say when they're given the opportunity, and not knowing the circumstances of how it would be used. And I thought I got a very honest expressions, and the most interesting ones are the ones that appear in the song. And sometimes each word in each sentence actually literally had to cut up many women to create this, which sounds more gruesome than it was, but it was more of a photo montage with words. Well, the politics and religion can be extracted from it by anyone who listens to it. For example, use your fist and not your mouth, I think, comes across as